If we finish Muzdalifa, then hopefully this is what we'll be starting off. So we're good from there? Everybody's online?
Ji Mufti, I mean, there are a few people. I think whoever was going to join has joined already. I think the volume again, it kind of went low a little bit.
We started off last time, inshallah, on the Hajj seminar. We are going to be going now and discussing all of the ahkam that pertain to your stay in Mina. So remember, this is the second time, inshallah. This is the second time we're going to be going to Mina. The first time at Mina was right before Arafat. So just to kind of create a small mental map in your mind, like kind of like as a mini version of the Hajj, we start off in Makkah Mukarramah, right? We finish our Umrah. And Umrah is just as simple as making sure we do our tawaf in Ihram, and then we go for Sa'i after the tawaf. And then a person comes out of Ihram as soon as the Sa'i is done. Then we're going to be staying in Makkah Mukarramah for as many days as we have left until the 8th, right? The 8th of Dhul Hijjah. Then on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, we put on a new Ihram. A person goes to Mina the first time. And over there, normally the sunnah is you pray Salatul Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and then Fajr in Mina. After that, from Mina, a person goes to the plains of Arafat, and over there there'll be tents. We discussed all about Arafat also. There, Dhuhr and Asr, a person will pray in Arafat and pretty much spend the whole time making dua. After Arafat, Maghrib time, as soon as the sun sets, we will be leaving from Arafat, and then we go to Muzdalifa. In Muzdalifa, even if a person takes very long to get there, we'll pray Maghrib there. Even if it's in Isha time, no problem. This is all part of the Hajj. This is the Sunnah. So in Muzdalifa, we'll pray Maghrib and Isha late, even if it's in Isha time. Then what happens? At Fajr time, the wuquf of Muzdalifa starts. So some part of Fajr we have to spend in Muzdalifa. Right? And in Muzdalifa, really, it's just our namazes that we have to do, zikr, tilawat, all the other forms of durood, tahajjud, right? And it's also a good time to start picking up your pebbles, because now on this day, the 10th, right? After that Fajr, after that wuquf of Muzdalifa is done, then what happens is we're going to go to Mina the second time. So from there, I'm going to continue now, and this is the slide that you see on your screen. So the first point that we have is that on this day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when we go to Mina, the main thing of Mina is stoning of those shayateen. When we have those three pillars, the stoning of Mina, this is pretty much the main action to do at Mina. But on the 10th day, there's only one of them that we're going to stone. That one is called Jamratul Ukhra or Jamratul Uqba, which is the last pillar and the biggest pillar. So if you look at the screen on the top right-hand corner, you will see the three pillars, right? And there's certain arrows on the top left corner. It shows you the direction. That if you're looking at it, Makkah Mukarramah will be to your left. If you can see my cursor over here, right? There's an arrow that Makkah Mukarramah will be to your left. And down here, there's another cursor on the bottom right that Arafat is going to be down and to the right. The very first pillar on the right-hand side will be Sughra, Jamratul Sughra, the smaller pillar. Then Jamratul Wusta, the medium pillar, and Jamratul Uqba, the last pillar, is going to be to your left. So this is the third one, is the one that's going to be stoned on this particular day. And the number of pebbles for this one is going to be 7 pebbles. So you cast your 7 pebbles at Jamratul Uqba. Now the question is, at what time? Like at what time can we do this action? So the time frame for the 10th, right, is going to be from the Fajr of the 10th until just before the Fajr of the 11th, right? So we have a longer time frame, but it has to be done somewhere between here. If it's not done, if a person doesn't do it when the Fajr of the 11th set, I mean, if the Fajr of the 11th has already started, then a person has to slaughter a sheep and give dam because of the stoning of the 10th. So that's the general broad window. If it's done before the 10th, like if a person does it before Fajr of the 10th, they somehow left Muzdalifa early and they said, I just want to stone it before even the Fajr because the crowds are less, then it will not be valid. That stoning will not be valid. So the best time to do it, the sunnah time to do it, the mustahab time to do it is from sunrise until zawal, until just before zuhr. Right? So from sunrise till zawal is the mustahab time. The permissible time, that's fine, but it's not mustahab, it's just jaiz, it's permissible, is from zawal, from zuhr time until maghrib, until sunset. If for some reason a person couldn't do it in any of these times, if a person does it after sunset or isha time or tahajjud time and still before fajr, it'll be valid, but it'll be the makruh time, but it'll still take place, it'll be valid. A person doesn't have to give any kind of a penalty, right? So those are the timings. Normally, most people kind of do this. If a person is going to be leaving from Muzdalifa, they're going to come to their tents at Mina. A person is going to settle down, put their baggings, their belongings, and normally on this particular day, you're going to see there's going to be a very huge rush. But if your tents are close to the Jamarat, you're going to be very fortunate, very lucky. It's probably going to be about a 15-minute walk. You'll have your 7 stones. You wait your turn patiently. When your turn comes, you're just only going to stone the 7 pebbles. And you don't have to do the other 2 pillars. Now, there's going to be other actions also to do on this particular day. The 10th is going to be a very busy day. So we're going to start off with that. I'm going to finish a couple of more discussions, and then we're going to move on to the other actions that we have to do on this particular day. So the first point that you're going to see on the slide, the new slide that I have here, that it's best to stone the last Jamara with Makkah on your left and Mina on your right. Meaning the position, how a person should stand, right? You're going to see, even when you go to the stoning area, there's going to be signs that says Qibla this direction, right? So Qibla basically means that's the direction that the Qibla is going to be. So you try to make Makkah Mukarramah on your left side. So you stand in such a way that you put your that sign that says Qibla this way towards your left side. And then from that angle, you can stone the Jamarat. If you can do so, it's good, it's mustahab. That's how Rasulullah had done it from that position. For some reason, if you can't, no problem, you can stone it from any side. They've made it very easy, and there's 2 lanes. There's 2 sides a person can stone from. Let me go back to the previous picture. I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you look at this slide, on the bottom picture here, they've made a wall. Before it used to be a pillar, now it's a huge wall that represents the shaitan. So you can see people around this corner and there's people around this corner. And you can see the sheer number of people that are there. So you can go on any one of these 2 sides, but normally on the top of the ceiling area, there's going to be like signs that says Qibla this direction. So let's say you're in the crowd and you want to come for your stoning. When you see one of those signs, try to stand to the pillar in such a way that says that Qibla is this way. So put the Qibla towards your left. When you get there, inshallah, some of the other scholars that will be with you, you can ask them about that, inshallah, and they'll give you some guidance about that. So that's the mustahabbat of stoning. You position yourself in that direction. And number 2, when you take the stone, a person should make some form of dhikr when you're stoning the shayateen. So a person should recite at least Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar when you're throwing the pebbles. Person doesn't do that. A person should say at least tasbih, like Subhanallah, or La ilaha illallah, or Allahu Akbar. So as you're stoning, along with that, we should be praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making the takbir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with every throw. Then when a person is holding the stone, the best way to hold the stone is to hold it between the thumb and the index finger, right? Just those two fingers. And over there, I have one more picture on the bottom of the screen that when we're picking our pebbles, what size pebbles a person should use, because you'll see over there, people sometimes get very emotional. Sometimes slippers and chappals are being thrown at the shayateen. All of that is unnecessary. All of those things are not part of the sunnah. So we should just use straight pebbles. But then too, you can see in the picture, we don't want too big of a pebble like this. Why? Because this could also possibly cause injury, possibly cause harm. And this is not really the sunnah. We shouldn't use something too small that could barely be considered as a pebble. That's kind of tiny. Maybe it's looking more like a rice grain that's too small, but something that's about the size that you can see in the middle of the hand. Maybe something the size of a chickpea or like a small bean or something of that size. Those are the pebbles that would be sufficient for your stoning. Moving on to the next, after you have cast your 7 pebbles and your rami is done, right? Rami is your casting of your pebbles. When that's done on the 10th, now the other actions on the 10th, we're going to move on to those because very soon we're going to be coming out of the ihram, inshallah. The 10th is a very big day. The 10th for the people back home is the day of Eid, but for us in Hajj, there's going to be a lot of other things going on for us. We're not going to be praying Eid Salah because we'll be very busy doing all the other af'al of Hajj. So you can see on the top of the screen that this is also the day where the qurbani or the sacrificing of our Hajj tamattu will take place, and also the shaving of the head will take place on this day. But tartib, succession, and following the sequence is something which is wajib, it's something which is necessary. The very first thing that has to happen is first, we need to make sure we stone the jamrah. After the stoning of the jamrah, then after that, the sacrifice of the sheep takes place. And then once those two things are done and confirmed, then a person can shave their head. So on the top part of the screen, you can see about the sacrifice, about when we do the zabiha of our sheep. It must be done after stoning on the 10th, right? The sacrifice has to be done, which is wajib. It must be done because a person who performs Hajj tamattu, it's also called dam al-shukr. It's a form of dam, it's a form of blood that we shed out of shukr, out of gratefulness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the opportunity to do 2 Hajj. One Hajj being our Umrah, and the Hajj Akbar, the bigger Hajj, in one trip. So out of shukr and gratefulness, a person sacrifices this sheep or goat. Second point, many people ask this question, that if I'm already slaughtering this one sheep for my dam al-shukr, but then don't I also have to do my normal qurbani? Like if I was at home, I have to do my qurbani for Eid. So the qurbani of Eid is not wajib on the haji, because the haji will be a musafir, right? Anybody who's going on safar and who's on a journey, he does not have to perform qurbani, right? So because most of the hajis are going to be musafirs, they do not have to do their qurbani. If for some reason, if there's a local person doing his Hajj and he happens to be a resident there, that's a different story. They will have to do their qurbani. But all of us coming from the United States, we will not have to do qurbani. So once the sacrifice is done, right, and we're not going to do this with our own hands. It's logistically impossible to have this done over there. There's going to be wakil, like an agent set aside for us. So you'll get in contact with your Hajj group leaders. They will have people who are going to do the qurbani. So they are the ones that are going to inform you that our turn or our sheep that have been assigned for us, they have been slaughtered. We have received confirmation, and then they'll give you that information, they'll give you that news that your qurbani has been done. As soon as you receive that confirmation, then a person can go and get the head shaved, or if it's a sister, you can go get your hair trimmed, and then a person can come out of the state of ihram. Right? So in the bottom part of the screen, when we're talking about shaving or trimming, point number 1, once we receive the news of the sacrifice being complete, the head will be shaved or trimmed. Point number 2, the hair must be shaved or trimmed during the ayam and nahar. If for some reason something happened, we didn't get news of our qurbani, we didn't get news of our sacrifice, or there was some sort of a mix-up at the slaughterhouse, there's a time restriction here. So the qurbani has to be done sometime between the fajr of the 10th, as soon as fajr breaks on the 10th, until finally the sunset of the 12th, right? And this must be done in the boundaries of the haram. If it's not done during this time, then a penalty becomes wajib, another sheep has to be sacrificed in lieu of that. The third point, all the rules of ihram that we discussed about will come to an end, will come to a completion as soon as the head is shaved. But there's one exception. So when we shave our head, we will become like a normal person out of ihram. We can wear clothing, we can wear shoes, we can wear socks, we can wear headgear, topi, ladies can wear their niqab, all of those things, perfume we can wear, clipping of the nails, all of that is permissible. But there's one exception. A person cannot be intimate with his wife, or a wife cannot be intimate with the husband, right? This one aspect of ihram is still remaining, that we cannot have intimate relations. This will only be then permissible after a person does their tawaf al-ziyarah or tawaf al-ifada, the fard tawaf of Hajj. So just be very, very careful about that the person should not be having any sort of relations until after the tawaf of ziyarah is complete, right? And one other misconception that many people have is that since we've come out of ihram, we haven't done our tawaf al-ziyarah yet. So what does that mean? That we're going to do our tawaf al-ziyarah in plain clothes? Yes. The fard tawaf of your Hajj, you will do that in plain clothes, right? You don't have to be in your ihram for that. So that's what that means. It's not a necessary item that you have to do your tawaf al-ziyarah in your ihram. Right? So that brings us now to the next slide, which is our tawaf al-ziyarah, which most people do on the 10th, right? So to recap, we left Muzdalifa after Fajr, sometime after Fajr. We get on the bus, we drive to Mina. When we get to Mina, we go to our tent, unload all of our belongings, get ready, walk over to the Jamarat. We skip over the Jamratul Sughra, the Jamratul Wusta, we pass over those two and go to Jamratul Uqba, the last third Jamra. Over there we will stone the last pillar, the last Jamra with 7 pebbles, preferably with some form of zikr like Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and we will cast that stone 7 times, yani with the Qibla to our left side, preferably. Otherwise from any side is fine. After the stoning is done, yani we just go back to our tents and we wait for the news and the confirmation that our qurbani is done. And this could take any amount of time, right? Because 3 million people are going to be performing their Hajj. That means that there's going to be a lot of slaughtering and a lot of sacrifice. So it could take hours. So here at the tent, we can go back to the tent, a person can go to sleep, a person can eat breakfast, a person can do whatever that you want. Those are like your sleeping quarters. And once we get that confirmation, maybe several hours later, that okay, our qurbanis have been complete, then a person can then go to one of the barber shops that are nearby, get your hair trimmed, shave your head, come out of ihram, And then you can see, because it's still the 10th, at that time in plain clothes, this will be discussed between the Hajj leaders and the Hajj group about going for Tawaf al-Ziyarah. So now we're going to talk about the time frame and some information about the Tawaf al-Ziyarah, that when should we do it, how should we do it, and so forth. So starting with the first point on top in our screen, this Tawaf is your Fard Tawaf of Hajj. This is the main Tawaf of Hajj. Tawaf al-Ziyarah, other people call it Tawaf al-Ifada. So it's Fard to do it, it must be done in order for the Hajj to be complete. Second point, the best time to perform your Tawaf al-Ziyarah, or the best day, is on the 10th, right? This is the Sunnah day. But just as a word of caution, that it's very, very busy on the 10th, extremely crowded. So if there's elderly there, if there's some ladies there, if there's people who have some injuries there, who find it difficult to walk and cannot deal with large crowds, then they should be careful about doing it on the 10th, because as you can see, it can be done on the 10th, and it can be done even on the 11th. It can even be done on the 12th until before the sunset of the 12th. When we had gone last year, we had gone on the 11th, and this was after Maghrib, and it was very easy. It wasn't that crowded. It was done very comfortably. The Tawaf al-Ziyarah cannot be done before the 10th. So if a person somehow leaves Muzdalifa early and they say we want to go for the Tawaf al-Ziyarah before the Fajr, before the big crowds get there, it's not going to be permissible before the 10th. So it should be done after the 10th. And then to remember that it's just very crowded. So pick and choose your time wisely. The next point, if it's done after sunset of the 12th, if we didn't do it on the 10th, we didn't do it on the 11th, we didn't do it on the 12th, and then the Maghrib set in, we still have to do it. But what happens if we do it after that time? Then we have to sacrifice a sheep. A dam will be wajib for delaying it out of its due time. The next point that we have, if sa'i for Tawaf al-Ziyarah was already performed, right? And this is the one I was talking about in our last session that we had, that if you want to make it easier and you want to do this sa'i for Hajj, you could have done sa'i for Hajj way back right at the beginning when you first put on your ihram. If you remember, we go back to the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, we put on our ihram, right? A person goes for a nafal tawaf. After the nafal tawaf, a person goes for sa'i at that time. At that time on the 8th, that sa'i of yours is your sa'i for Hajj. If you did it at that time, now on the 10th day, today, you don't have to do your sa'i because it has already been done. It doesn't have to be done in succession or tartib or sequence to your tawaf al-ziyarah. It could have been done to that nafal tawaf. So going back to the point, if sa'i for Tawaf al-Ziyarah was already performed with a nafal tawaf on the 8th, then no sa'i will be done, which means that there's not going to be any ramal and there's going to be no ittiba either, right? Because first of all, we're not in our ihram, so there's no ittiba, and there's no need for ramal because there's no sa'i thereafter. The next point, if the sa'i was not performed on the 8th, we didn't do any nafal tawaf after which we did a sa'i. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to have to do our sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Remember the two mountains a person goes between? That is what sa'i is. If we didn't do it then we'll have to do the sa'i for our Hajj, here after your tawaf of ziyarah. So let's read the note. If a sa'i was not performed on the 8th, then the first 3 rounds will be done with ramal. So ramal, to refresh our memory, that's when you walk like a soldier. That's when you walk very briskly, keeping your chest out and so forth. And this is for the men. So the first 3 rounds of your tawaf al-ziyarah will be done with ramal. So you kind of walk briskly like a soldier with your chest out. After the 3 rounds, then you will do your tawaf like in a normal pace, normal walking stance. Then a person will finish the tawaf. You'll finish your 7 rounds of tawaf al-ziyarah, and then you try to find a place, preferably close to Maqam Ibrahim if you can. If you can't, no problem. You'll pray your 2 rakat, that's wajib after tawaf. You make your istilam again. This we already discussed. Istilam, make ishara towards the Hajar Aswad. Then you will go for your sa'i between Safa and Marwa at this particular moment. The last point, since he will most likely, he or she, more specifically to men, since they'll be out of the state of ihram, there's not going to be any iztiba. And iztiba is when a person exposes the right shoulder. When you put the ihram underneath your right shoulder and you let it hang on your left shoulder, that was iztiba. There's not going to be any iztiba of the ihram. But however, for some reason, let's assume that a person is still in ihram. For example, a person had some free time that you wanted to come on the 10th and do your tawaf first, and then go back to Mina, and then do your stoning, sacrifice, and your shaving. Yani that could be possible too. If you want to come very, very, very early, do your tawaf al-ziyarah first, and then go back. If you somehow, some way still have your ihram on, and you haven't come out of ihram, then you would make sure that for your sa'i, for your tawaf, since you have to do sa'i afterward, you have to make sure that you put your ihram in the ittiba shape and you expose your right shoulder also. So those are some of the rules of the tawaf al-ziyarah. Continuing on to the next page, to discuss some of the wajibat, what is compulsory in this tawaf. Number 1, that a person must do it on foot for whoever can do so on foot. Like if a person doesn't have any excuse and they just want to use a wheelchair just for the fun of it, or if they want to use some other, like a scooter or something, you can't. A person has to do it on foot for whoever can walk on foot. If a person has some injury or some difficulty, then they can use the wheelchairs. The next point, it's wajib to begin the tawaf, yani going to the right side. Everybody else will be doing it, we just follow the crowd. Another wajib of tawaf is that a person must complete all 7 rounds of the tawaf, right? So make sure you keep a good count. Another wajib of tawaf is a person must be in the state of wudu, right? Which means a person must be free from janaba. If a person had a wet dream, a person should be free from hadath. And hadath meaning like if a person passes gas, uses the bathroom, bleeds, or any of those things. And also free from the state of menses. If a woman should be free from her haid and her menstrual cycle. The next point, the next wajib, is that the aura needs to be covered. For men, that's between the knee and the navel. And for sisters, yani it's the entire body except for the face and her hands and the feet. Right? So a person has to be covered respectfully when making this tawaf. The next point that is wajib is that this has to happen between the Fajr of the 10th and Maghrib of the 12th. So you can do it any time between here. And if it's done afterward, then a penalty and a dam will become wajib. Some other points that are important for sisters. What happens if a sister happens to be in her menstrual cycle in these days? What is she supposed to do? So point number 1, if a woman stops bleeding on the 12th before sunset, right? So let's assume she was bleeding, and her haid terminates on the 12th day, which is the last day to do tawaf. And it's before sunset, before Maghrib. And there's enough time where she can take a bath, she has enough time to finish at least 4 rounds, which is the majority of the tawaf, then she must do so, right? So you look and you gauge. Let's assume, for example, that her menses stopped at around 5 p.m. and she went for ghusl, and let's assume Maghrib is about 8 p.m. So she has enough time to do her ghusl. She has enough time, yani, to make it to Makkah Mukarramah, and then she has enough time to perform at least 4 rounds of the tawaf. Then it's wajib for her, she must do so. If she does not do so, let's assume that she doesn't know or she gets too lazy and she just doesn't do so for some reason or the other, then she must pay dam. She must sacrifice and slaughter a sheep because now she doesn't have an excuse. She has delayed her tawaf ziyarah outside of the time without a proper valid excuse, right? If she says the excuse was that I was in my menses, the menses stopped at 5 p.m. So you had 3 hours to do so. So there's no real excuse. Then a person has to then slaughter a sheep as a penalty. If she doesn't get enough time, for example, let's assume that her menses and her bleeding stopped at around 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., after then she goes for a ghusl, she comes out of the shower, let's say at 7:15. By 7:15, if she tries to drive to Makkah Mukarramah, she tries to get into the masjid, and there's not enough time, she can only do 1 round. She can only do 2 rounds. She can only do 3 rounds of tawaf, but she cannot finish 4 rounds of tawaf. Then that means she doesn't have enough time to do so. That then means that her tawaf ziyarah is going to get delayed and pushed until after the 12th of Maghrib. Then there is no dam that is wajib upon her. So she can delay her tawaf ziyarah afterward without any due penalty because she has an excuse from the side of Sharia. So that brings us to the last point. If due to menses, she misses this time, she does not need to pay dam. She will do her tawaf when she becomes clean and pak. It can even be on the 12th, it can be on the 13th, the 14th, the 15th. So whenever she becomes clean, then she will go and do her tawaf ziyarah, which is the fard tawaf of her hajj when she becomes clean. So that being done after the tawaf ziyarah, now what happens that the hajis will go back to their tent at Mina because you're going to be camping out there for about 2 or 3 days. So we did our stoning on the 10th. We finished the Qurbani. We came out of Ihram, do your tawaf ziyarah, and then you come back to your tent. Normally this is the easy time. There's nothing much more to do in the tent. The only one thing that we have to do is the remaining of our stoning, right, of the pillars for the remaining 2 more days, or if preferred, 3 more days of Mina. So now we're going to discuss about the stoning or the Rami at Mina on the 11th and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. So point number 1, it is sunnah to spend the night at Mina, right? Since we have our tents there, we sleep in our tents at Mina. So a person can leave during the daytime. You're free. If a person wants to do some shopping, if a person wants to meet somebody, you can leave Mina. You can go to Makkah Mukarramah. That's what some people do for the tawaf ziyarah. So during the days, you are free to leave. You're free to go out of the plains of Mina. But the sunnah is to spend the night at Mina, that a person comes back and make sure you sleep in the precinct or the district of Mina. It is disliked to sleep anywhere else. Like if a person wants to get a hotel in Makkah Mukarramah and you want to sleep in Makkah Mukarramah for some reason, this is makruh and disliked. But if a person does so, there is no dam, there is no penalty, there is no slaughter or sacrifice. It's just something disliked. The next point, on the days of the 11th and the 12th, the stoning, the Rami, must be done after Zawal. On the 10th that we saw, on the 10th we could have done it before Zawal, right? And that's only one of the pillars, the last pillar that we stone. But on the 11th and the 12th, we're going to be stoning 3 pillars, right? And it must be done after Zawal time, when from the time of the start of Zuhr. If a person does it before this time, it's not going to be proper, it will not count. The best time is from Zawal until sunset, right? This is the best time, the mustahab time. If a person stones after sunset, after Maghrib, or after Isha, or any time until before Fajr sets, this is makruh, this is not liked, but still no penalty. If there's a reason to do so at this time, for example, there's sisters, elderly, people who need special care, right? If for some reason they prefer to go at this time because of heavy crowds and so forth, then it will not be makruh for them. The next point, if a person does his stoning after Fajr, for some reason he didn't do it after Zawal, after Zohar, he didn't do it after Asr, he didn't do it after Maghrib or Isha, and for some reason it took him all the way until the next day after Fajr, if a person stones after Fajr, it will be considered qada, that you're making qada, that you missed it. Right? Like if a person misses Fajr and makes it up after its time, so this is called qada. It's as if you're making it up. And dam will be wajib. A person will have to sacrifice a sheep for missing the proper time. The next point, what if a person misses every single stoning, every single rami? So if every single rami was missed and all of their time have expired, so on the 11th you missed all of them, on the 12th you missed all of them, then what happens? Still only one sheep will be slaughtered. Only one sheep will be slaughtered, one dam will be given. The next point, the time for qada. If a person didn't make the stoning or the rami in its appropriate time, when can a person make qada? When can you make up for that? So the time for qada of any of these rami is until sunset of the 13th. Right? A person can make up for those in any time until the sunset Maghrib of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. After that, there's no more rami. If a person missed it, then only you just slaughter and sacrifice your sheep, and you'll go without having done your rami. Okay. The final point on this page, on the 13th, rami, let's assume somebody wants to finish. Most people, they leave after the 12th. After they've finished the stoning and the pelting on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, so you've already stoned it on the 10th, you've stoned it on the 11th, and you have stoned and pelted on the 12th, right? After these 2 days, the 11th and the 12th, most people prefer to leave, but some people want to stay one more day in Mina. So it's depending upon you and your group. If your group chooses to stay one more day and get more reward, get more ajr for the stoning and the shayateen of Mina, then the question kind of comes in that, is there any different timings? Some people want to then stone, and they want to spend the night, one more night after Fajr. The question comes in that can we stone the pillars after Fajr, or do we have to wait until after Zawal? That's why this last point is here, that on the 13th, Rami can be done, it may be done from Fajr until sunset, but it is makruh. Preferable time is to do it from Zawal. The sunnah time is to do it from Zawal. But if for some reason a person has to do it and so forth, a lot of people, they choose then to go to Medina Munawwara. So it depends upon your group leader and so forth. So one thing to discuss is, if a person leaves, if you're intending to leave after the 12th, then make sure you leave before Maghrib of the 12th. So let's go over some of the rules. I'm going to discuss a little bit about this Maghrib of the 12th a little bit later, in the Fajr of the 13th. That what happens, when does the Rami on that 13th become wajib? We're going to discuss that in a little bit, inshallah. So we're right close to the end now. So some of the points about Rami of Mina on the 11th and 12th. So point number 1, we will stone 7 pebbles each for Jamratul Ula, Jamratul Wusta, and then Jamratul Aqaba. So we'll do them in succession. The first pillar will come, you will stone it 7 times, right? And similarly, the second pillar, the third pillar. So 7 pebbles each. Next point, each stone should be independently cast. You throw them independently, one, and then a second, and then a third. You will not throw all 7 pebbles together at one time. If you do take all of your 7 pebbles and throw them with one throw, then that will count only as one. Next point, if a person is able to throw him or herself, then a person cannot appoint another person as a wakil unless they are sick. If a person is sick, then a person can appoint somebody else to throw the pebbles for them. And what is considered sick in Sharia? That a person cannot stand and perform salah. Like if a person sits to perform salah, or if a person experiences great pain in walking to get there and so forth, then you are sick enough to appoint somebody. Next point, if a sick person or an ill person leaves out Rami, they're like, I can't do it, then they have to slaughter a sheep. They have to give them, because you can just appoint your buddy, your sister, your brother, your Hajj group leader, somebody else to do it for you. So there's no excuse why you didn't even appoint somebody. The next point, even women must perform a Rami by themselves, right? They're not going to appoint their husband. If they can't for some reason because they're sick, then they can appoint a wakil. But if they're not sick, even women must perform their own Rami. The next point, if a woman or a sick person or an elderly person, if they perform Rami before sunset on the 10th and after sunset on the 11th or the 12th, then it will not be makruh. Right? It will not be makruh. So this is what we already discussed before. The normal makruh times, it's makruh for other people disliked, but for the ladies, for the elderly, and for the sick, it will not be makruh. They can do so after Maghrib. The next point, after stoning the first Jamrah, so we're going and we're walking up to the first pillar, the first shaitan. As soon as you cast your 7 pebbles, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and so forth, as soon as you're finished with your 7 pebbles, you should move ahead. You should walk ahead a little bit, move out of the way of other people behind you, and then facing towards the Qibla, a person should stand for a while making dua. This is the Sunnah. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be arrows pointing out which way is the Qibla. You stand over there, spend some time, about 5 minutes or so, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Sunnah. Then you continue on and you'll go to the second pillar. Yani you walk a little bit forward, the second pillar will come. When you're over there, you'll cast 7 pebbles on the second pillar. Right? Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. So when the 7 pebbles are done being stoned on the second pillar, you again move forward a little bit, move out of the way, face the Qibla, and make dua again. Then you move forward even more so. You go to the third pillar, the third Jamrah. Over there, you'll catch 7 pebbles, and as soon as your 7 pebbles are done for the last Jamrah and for the last pillar, you will not stop to make dua after the third one, right? So this is not considered sunnah. After your third Jamrah is stoned, you'll go back to your tent and you'll continue on with the remainder of your day over there. The next point, the 12th day of Dhul Hijjah, for your stoning, you will do it exactly as you did on the 11th. There's nothing different. Both of the days are the same. Next point, after stoning on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, so now here you have an option. You can leave, you can go back to Makkah Mukarramah, you can leave from Medina Munawwara, but you should leave before sunset. You should leave before sunset. If you wish to leave, make sure you leave before sunset, before Maghrib. If a person is still in Mina after sunset, then he should stay and do Rami on the 13th, right? Maghrib, as soon as Maghrib sets, it starts the next day. So technically the 13th starts at Maghrib. So if a person is Mina on the 13th, after Maghrib, right, of the 12th, which is the 13th, then a person should stay on the 13th and then do the Rami. It's makruh for a person to leave now. It's not wajib, it's like any makruh. It only becomes wajib to do the stoning if a person stays in Mina until Fajr time. So, to recap, you decide to leave, you finish your stoning on the 12th, try to have the whole group pack up the bus and leave before Maghrib. If you leave before that, no problem, it's well and good. If you wait longer than that, after Maghrib, and everybody wants to leave after Isha or wants to leave Tahajjud time, it's makruh that you stayed here this long and you didn't do your stoning. How come? So it's makruh. If we stay till Fajr, we're like, oh, don't worry, we'll just stay till Fajr and then we'll leave, right? Then every person has to give dam and slaughter a sheep because we stayed there at Fajr time in Mina on the 13th and we didn't do the stoning that was wajib upon us. So then a person has to give dam and slaughter a sheep. So I hope that makes sense. Inshallah, we're on the very last slide and the very last of things to do. The very last thing to mention is that to recap, we have done our tawaf ziyarah. The tawaf ziyarah you would have done on the 10th. If you didn't do it on the 10th, you would have done it on the 11th or the 12th. Right? That's your fard tawaf. But there is one more tawaf that is left, which is called tawaful wada. Wada means to bid farewell. Right? So tawaful wada is wajib. Tawaf ziyarah is fard. Right? So a person has to ensure that they do tawaful wada. If a person misses tawaful wada, right, then you have to do qurbani of a sheep. So we're going to discuss some points now about tawaful wada. So point number one, on the way back to Makkah Mukarramah, right, a person should stop even for a while at the valley of Muhassab, right? So when you're going to Makkah Mukarramah from Mina, along the way, a person should stop by even for a while, if you can, on the valley of Muhassab, which is Sunnah. If you have your own bus and your own bus driver and you can speak to him, say we would like to stop by at the valley of Muhassab, even if it's for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. This is Sunnah. If you can't do so, no problem. So now your Hajj is done. But when you want to leave Makkah Mukarramah and you want to go to Medina Munawwara, you have to ensure that a person does Tawaful Wada, right? So in Tawaful Wada, the next point, there is no Ramal, right? Not walking like a soldier. There's no Ittiba, there's no exposing the right shoulder, right? So it's just like a normal general Tawaf. The only difference between this and the Nafil Tawaf is that this is considered wajib, right? So the only thing you really have to do is to perform the 2 rakats wajib namaz after your tawaf. The next point, this tawaful wada is not going to be wajib on a woman who starts her menstrual cycle. So let's assume she finished the tawaf ziyarah, she finished everything else. Let's assume now when they're trying to leave and a woman has not done her tawaful wada, right? If her menses start now and she's going to be bleeding for the next 7 days, so for her, she doesn't have to do her tawaful wada, it drops off from her. The next point, the earliest tawaful wada can be done is right after tawaf ziyarah. And this is something that's recommended. If you have done your tawaf ziyarah, right, and you finished your sa'i, right, and you're in Makkah Mukarramah, just do one more tawaf. Do one more tawaf. Even if it's a nafil tawaf, even if your intention was a nafil tawaf, make sure you do one more tawaf. The reason for this is, assuming you never get the ability to come back to Makkah Mukarramah from Mina, something happens, the Hajj group has to go, or you become sick, Allah forbid, or something happens, because you did one more tawaf after your tawaf ziyarah, that one tawaf will be counted as your tawaf al-wada. Even though you didn't make the niyyah for it, it will still count as tawaf al-wada. So make sure, try to do one extra tawaf after your tawaf ziyarah. You can even make the niyyah of nafl, but this could count as your tawaf al-wada even if there's no niyyah. There's a question I see in the notes, one of the Hujjaj. Can you guys, Faizan? Faizan?
Gigi, Mustafa. Actually, there are two questions already. I wrote it down. If Mustafa will scroll up, Mustafa will see it.
Oh, scroll up? Okay.
Yeah, there are two questions there.
Oh, okay, there it is. I see. All right. Assalamu alaikum. In Muzdalifa, does one pray Maghrib and Isha together? And can Isha be prayed with Maghrib time, or should Maghrib be prayed with Isha time? So yes, in Muzdalifa, Maghrib will be prayed with Isha time, yani in Isha's time. So it should be such that Maghrib is delayed until after the onset of Isha. So, and you're going to see that you won't really even have kind of that much time. By the time you leave Arafat with all of the hustle and bustle and all of the traffic, you're trying to go to Muzdalifa, you're trying to find a place to park, you're going to see automatically that it's going to go well into Isha time. I think for us, when we prayed Maghrib and Isha, it was close to like 11:30 at night. So and that's the earliest time we could have done it, because over there, guess what? There's like no bathrooms, right? If you're lucky, your bus driver will park somewhere where there's some form of a bathroom that you can use. So make sure you have water bottles with you for wudu purposes and so forth. But yeah, you will pray it in its Isha time, and you will basically delay your Maghrib, and you'll pray them in succession. So you'll pray your Maghrib first, right? And then immediately after that, you'll go straight to your Isha. So that's the first one. The second one is Tawaf Ziyarah. Is it done on the 10th? If Tawaf Ziyarah is done on the 10th, can Tawaf al-Wada be done on the 10th? So in answer to this one, yes. You can do Tawaf al-Wada right after Tawaf Ziyarah. But if you have to do Sa'i, then you would do it this way. You do your Tawaf Ziyarah, right? You pray your 2 rak'ah, then you go for Sa'i. If you haven't done Sa'i, you go do your Sa'i. And then after that, you come back and you do one more Tawaf. Right? You do one more Tawaf. If it's too busy and you're like, man, the crowds are super packed, I can't do one more Tawaf, I'm too tired. So you can do it later, but just make sure that we do it before the 12th. So do your Tawaf al-Wada, but if it's not so crowded, or if you have the himma, the courage, just spend another hour and a half and get that Tawaf done. You can do it right after your Tawaf Ziyarah and your Sa'i. Hope that answers those two questions. So coming back to the point, the earliest Tawaf al-Wada can be done is right after Tawaf Ziyarah. Right? The next point, there's no niyyah, there's no intention required specifically for this tawaf. You don't need to make the niyyah, oh Allah, this is my tawaf al-wada, right? Like I mentioned, even if you had made the niyyah of a nafal tawaf, then that nafal tawaf can count as your tawaf al-wada. So that's why the point is mentioning there that if a person did a nafal tawaf after tawaf al-ziyarah, that will suffice for this wajib, right? But it's better to do another final tawaf if possible. Meaning that if you do come back to Makkah Mukarramah, and this happens, like when we went for Hajj last year, we gave the same advice to our Haji group, that you're going to be there on the 10th, you're doing a tawaf ziyarah, do one nafal tawaf afterward, just in case. But let's assume, after that on the 10th, you came back to Mina on the 11th and the 12th. Let's assume you go back to Makkah Mukarramah for some reason, to do some shopping, to meet somebody. So you're back in the haram anyway, right? So it's better for you to then do one more tawaf, because you want to make a farewell tawaf. This is your bidding the Baytullah a farewell, right? So your previous one, although it can count, it's not in the spirit of the haram, of the blessed precincts. We're here on the 12th and then I don't do another tawaf. So if a person comes back into the haram, comes back into the masjid, then it's preferable for him now to do one more tawaf, which will, then this will count as his tawaf al-wada, right? And the previous one will just be nafil. But for some reason, if a person doesn't do it, like shortage of time, like I only have 5 minutes, I just have to meet somebody, I have to give him an amanat, or I have to say salam, so I don't have an hour and a half to do the tawaf, then it's understandable. Then the other nafil tawaf will count as your tawaf al-wada. Right? The final point. If a person passes miqat, right, and a person didn't do the tawaf al-wada, so you pass the miqat, like you're on your way out of the boundaries, then he can send a dam for missing a wajib. Right? You have an option. You can say, oh well, I didn't do my tawaf al-wada, so then you'll just make a phone call that can you slaughter one sheep on my behalf, I'll pay you the money. I didn't do my tawaf al-wada. So that's one option. Next option is a person puts on the ihram, goes back for umrah, does tawaf al-wada, and then there's no dam needed. This is practically nobody will do it this way. A person will just be like, okay, I'll slaughter one sheep. So here, see another question. If a person plans to do a second umrah right after Hajj, is it better to do tawaf al-wada, then do the second umrah, or do umrah and then do tawaf al-wada? So like if somebody wants to do another like a umrah, meaning that some people, since they've come out of ihram, the af'al of Hajj are done and so forth, and you still happen to be in the precincts, you haven't left from Medina Munawwara, so some people then go to Masjid Ni'im, or it's called Masjid Aish, they put on their ihram, and they come back for another tawaf. This tawaf al-wada, this one, for your Hajj, what I would do, I would make sure, because if your second umrah, it's like another trip, kind of like hukman. So try to do your tawaf al-wada of your Hajj first, then you leave the boundaries, put on your new ihram, and then come back for umrah, like that. So do your tawaf al-wada of your Hajj first. And then if a person wants, a lot of times you'll see that plans change on the cuff, so a person doesn't know what's going to happen. You don't want to risk it. So make sure you do your tawaf al-wada, or at least some nafil tawaf, which will count for your tawaf al-wada, your wajib tawaf al-wada, before considering any nafil second umrah or anything of that nature. So that's kind of the advice I would give for that. And that brings us to an end and a completion for this segment. I'm sure it's very dry, I understand, because these are all rules, these are all ahkam. I did want to go into more of the spiritual matters of Hajj, some of the virtues, some of the fada'il, but I think after an hour and 15 minutes, it's probably a little bit difficult right now. Maybe we can set up one third and final session when we can discuss some of the spiritual virtues of Hajj, mental preparation. We can discuss also some things of Medina Munawwara, some places to visit there. So hopefully, maybe inshallah, if we can set up one third session before your trip for this blessed spiritual journey, it might be beneficial, inshallah. We can discuss and set up a time for that as well. But I think inshallah we'll conclude and terminate this session with just this and all these notes. If you have any questions, you have the slide. Hopefully, inshallah, Mawlana Faizan should have a recording. If anything is still unclear, then you can send an email, send a message on the WhatsApp group. And let's discuss, inshallah, to see when we can have a third session to discuss about some of the fadail, some of the virtues, and some of the etiquettes for a future date, inshallah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
جزاك الله خير مصطفى.
وإياكم. السلام عليكم.